Hi everyone. Today we are actually going to make cheesecake. Cheesecake is a wonderful dessert you can have any time of the year, but today is the first day of fall. And when fall comes around, we start to think of all the comfort foods and the warm things we want to have in our kitchens and everything. And cheesecake is a comfort food. At least it is for me and always has been. So we are making a crustless cheesecake today. So what you're gonna need for this is you're gonna need 5 8-ounce blocks of good quality cream cheese, and I have 5 of them here, that you have brought to room temperature. You're gonna need 6 large eggs. You're gonna want 1 pint, that's 16 ounces, of sour cream. And you possibly could use low fat, but again, this is not a low fat household, so we're using full fat sour cream. You want 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar, and I'm using organic sugar here, but you can use regular, just white cane sugar if you want to do so. You want 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you want 1 teaspoon of vanilla. That's the basic ingredients. So the key to this is you're actually going to beat each ingredient until they're really smooth. You want no lumps in the batters. So we are starting with 1 of our 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese that's been brought to room temperature, so it's nice and soft to start off with. And again, if you have a stand mixer, that's the ideal way to go, but I don't. So we're going to be starting here, and you start on low just to get it going until it gets nice and smooth. That's getting really good. So you don't need to beat this on high right away. You just want to get the cream cheese creamy and not have any lumps in it. All right, so we're going to do this for 4 more blocks of cheese. We're only doing the cheese right now, and then we're going to add the other ingredients. And we'll be back in a moment after we get the 5 blocks in, and I can show you how it looks. See you in a little bit. All right, so I have beat 5 blocks, 5 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese. I've whipped them together to get a batter that we're going to go with. And now we're going to add in our eggs, 1 at a time. We have 6 large eggs. Now, you may be tempted to crack your egg against the bowl and do the one-handed drop into the bowl as you see sometimes on TV or on the edge of your counter and do it that way. Do not recommend it. There are 2 reasons. 1, when you crack your egg on the edge of a bowl or the counter, you are more likely than not to get shell in your egg. And obviously, you don't want shell in your egg. It's not a good thing. The other is you want to always check your eggs 1 at a time because there may be something spoiled with the egg. So if you drop it straight into your batter and it's a bad egg, you gotta fish that out. Hopefully you haven't ruined your batter. So I recommend just doing 1 at a time like this. So we're going to put these in and we're going to blend these together till smooth. 1 egg at a time. You may need to scrape down your bowl as you go, just to make sure everything gets in there like it's supposed to. Oh, that's starting to look good. Just with that 1 egg alone, it's starting to look good. So we're gonna do this for 5 more eggs because it's a half a dozen of large eggs going into this cream cheese batter. This is a rich dessert and you're gonna love it. And we'll be back after those eggs are in and we'll talk about the next steps. All right, so we've been beating our eggs in 1 at a time through this. You're getting this beautiful consistent batter now. It's starting to get that wonderful color that cheesecake is. And now you're gonna add in the rest of your ingredients just 1 at a time. And you're then going to mix and incorporate this together as you go. I like to start with my sugar because I can tell if all that's getting mixed in well enough. So it's 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. Again, you're just incorporating it in. You're not overbeating anything. The advantage of a hand mixer is you can get around to the edges of your bowl without having to do too much scraping. Oh, that's getting beautiful. I'm really gonna like this a lot when it's done. Okay, so now we're gonna add in our 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Always need a little bit of salt. Salt is life, as they say. And that's a quick one. Then I'm adding in our vanilla, and it's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then finally, final ingredient for this right now, anyway, is our sour cream. So as I mentioned, it is 16 ounces, so 1 pint of good quality sour cream that you're putting into your batter. My mixer doesn't want to stay in one spot. There we go. Close enough. Okay. Again, just mix it up. No lumps in your batter. So all of that has now been mixed together. All your ingredients are together. What you're going to do is you're actually going to beat this on high without splashing out your bowl, so as high as you can get it, for about 7 minutes, because you want to get everything incorporated for this. And then you are ready to bake your cheesecake. So I'm going to actually do this for 7 minutes, and I'll come back to you in a minute, and we'll put it into the pan. You'll see how all that works. All right, see you in a little bit. All right, so we're back. It has been 7 minutes and I was beating this on high. The volume has increased because actually the reason you're doing that is I was adding air into it, air bubbles into this. So I'm actually gonna put my cheesecake into a springform pan. I have a 9-inch here. The recipe actually calls for a 10-inch springform pan, which I do have. Unfortunately, I don't have a roasting pan wide enough for my 10-inch springform pan. The reason I'm doing the roasting pan is I'm actually going to put this into a bain-marie, so it's called a water bath. So you're actually going to do hot water about 1/4 of the way up your roasting pan, just giving this into a bath. So I'm going to have extra cheesecake batter, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I'm going to have to make some mini cheesecakes a little bit later because I don't like to waste batter. So you take this wonderful mixture that you have worked very hard on already, and you're going to pour it into your pan. Ooh. And you want to fill it. Ooh, that was almost too much. About 3/4 of the way is where you want to get on this, because it will rise up during the baking process because you've got all that air in there. And as I mentioned, I have a lot of batter left over because this recipe is actually for a 10-inch springform pan and this is a 9. So I've been preheating my oven to 400 degrees. I've moved my top rack to the second lowest area to kind of prevent a little over browning on the cheesecake. We're going to bake this at 400 degrees for 10 minutes only, and then drop the temperature oven down to 375 for 45 to 55 minutes until it's set almost all the way except for a small amount in the center. You're not supposed to poke this and test it that way. Got a little batter on the water. I'll scrape that out before I put this in the oven. It really won't bother because it's in the water, but I just don't like it there. So we'll see where it's at. So again, I'm putting this in my oven for 10 minutes at 400 degrees in my bain-marie, my water bath. And then I'll lower the temperature to 375 and it'll bake for another 45 to 55 minutes. At that time, I'm going to turn off the oven, open the door slightly ajar, and let's sit there and bide its time for another hour. So yes, this again is not a quick recipe from Michael, but it's going to be delicious when it's done. When we come back, we'll see how this looks. I'll give you a little history on cheesecake as I'm making some toppings. See you in a little bit. All right, everyone, so our cheesecake went 10 minutes at 400 degrees. I've lowered the temperature down to 375, and I'm gonna check out in about 45 to 55 minutes to see if it's actually done by that time. In the meantime, while the cheesecake is baking, I am actually gonna make a couple of different toppings. Now, sure, you could go out and get the canned pie fillings if you want, of the cherry and the blueberry, which is kind of traditional, what we're used to seeing and everything. But if you're going to all the trouble to make a homemade cheesecake, why not take a few extra steps and make some toppings that people will actually enjoy and not think about, shouldn't this be in a pie instead of on a cheesecake? So I'm actually doing strawberries and blueberries because it's the end of the summer season and they are ripe and they're fresh and beautiful in the market. So I picked up some strawberries and I picked up some blueberries. So what I've done is I've cleaned my strawberries, washed them, I've taken the crowns off of them, and I'm actually going to hull them as well. So many people don't do this step. You want to take a sharp knife to the top of your strawberry and just work around that stem area, being careful not to cut yourself on a sharp knife. Getting on paramedics here. And you're just removing the top of that stem because that's a rough part on the berry and nobody really likes to eat that. It doesn't really work very well. So I've done the rest of them and I'm just going to do 2 here for you all. And you don't have to be perfect on this because you're going to dice up your strawberries. So again, just pop out that part of that stem. So now you have your strawberries. So you can go through now and you can just do a quick slice on them. You could do this as slices, you can do them as dices. For the sake of expediency, I might actually do them as slices. I think sliced strawberries on top of the cheesecake would be kind of nice. So I think we'll just do that. So, cheesecake. Where did it start from? Typically, especially here in the US, when we think of cheesecake, we think of New York. Well, the thing is, cheesecake did not originate in New York, contrary to the hubris that is America. It actually has been around for thousands and thousands of years, 4,000 or more. Actually, the last recorded recipe, or the earliest known recorded recipe for cheesecake was over 4,000 years ago. So we figure it was actually before that, but that was when they actually wrote things down. Okay. So it started with Greeks, actually, and they actually baked cheese into a cake. So it was cheesecake. Very simple, okay? When the Romans came along, they adapted that recipe and they added eggs to it. So you got a little creamier. When it made its way to Europe, many thousands of years later, kind of a thing, it started to become what we know of today as cheesecake by adding in the sugar, adding in the vanilla, just creaming up the cheese and everything. And originally it was a very pungent cheese that was done with this, but we like to do, particularly here in the US, because it makes a great cheesecake, is a cream cheese. Now, I've mentioned before, do not skimp on your ingredients. This is one place where you definitely don't want to skimp. If you do a cheap or cheaper cream cheese, it's lower in fat content. So your cheesecake will actually be a little watery. It won't set properly and everything. So you want that high fat cream cheese. You don't want to get the low fat cream cheese. You want to just go for it because you're going to eat cheesecake. Who are you kidding yourself? Really, that you were going to go low fat off of that? No. Just reduce how many pieces you have. That's another way to do things. So I mentioned that I put my cheesecake into a bain-marie. A bain-marie, as I mentioned, is a water bath. There is an urban legend that the reason it's called a bain-marie is it's named after an apothecary back in, I think it was the 1500s, so 16th century, named the Jewess Marie. Well, that isn't quite correct because there is evidence that shows that water bath baking has been around again since the Romans, so thousands of years off this. So I don't know where the bain-marie comes from to be exact. I know the bain is part of Latin for the bath piece of it, but where the marie comes from, I have no idea why she got credit for that. But it's a water bath. So I'm taking my sliced strawberries. I decided to do sliced just for expediency, and I think it'll look nicer as a topping. You could just serve it like this, fresh strawberry, and be good with it. That's not me. I don't like to do things that simple. So what I do is I like to macerate my berries. So with this, I'm actually putting in 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. And the sugar, I'm going to mix this up in a second. The sugar is going to help the juices to release and get this wonderful mushiness consistency, actually, and get a syrupy thing out of it as well, without having to resort to the canned type of toppings. So I'm going to lightly mix that where the sugar gets in, and just incorporate it mostly where I don't see a lot of sugar anymore. And then I'm going to add in about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. I love these because they're pure lemon juice. There's no preservatives, artificial flavors, everything into it. So about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice I squirted into that, because the lemon with the strawberry is a great combination. It gives a nice tartness to the sweetness of the strawberries and that sugar with the sweetness. So that's it. That's your strawberry topping. Now, blueberries. I have about 2 cups of fresh blueberries that I've washed, drained, and I've picked through them to make sure there's no stems, because nobody wants to eat stems. I'm not chopping these because I think whole strawberries whole blueberries are actually, again, beautiful on the dish. So the same thing. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Just sprinkle that through. Mix it up a little bit. Add in again lemon juice. 1 to 2 teaspoons, just whatever seems right to you at the time. How tart do you want this? I like a little tartness. So it's about a teaspoon and a half roughly is what I put in there. Mix that up. And now you have your blueberry topping. And I'm going to cover these. I'm going to put them in the refrigerator. I'm going to let them marinate, essentially, overnight, because we're not having the cheesecake in tomorrow, because it has to cool overnight to be completely set. So this will be a tomorrow thing with your toppings. Now, you can do all kinds of toppings with this and all variations of cheesecake. The great thing about cheesecake is it's very flexible as far as a product goes. When I was in college, there was this great little restaurant that I had the opportunity to visit every once in a while, meaning when somebody else was paying, because I was a college student, and they had dessert brought in. One of their desserts that I will always remember is a chocolate chip cheesecake. It was dense, it was rich, there were chocolate chips throughout it. It had actually a chocolate bottom cookie crumble off of it. And what I also remember about this, speaking of toppings, I didn't digress, is that you would get it with a small container, a little pot of hot fudge. Now originally, coming from the East Coast, I was a little bit of a purist, thinking, hot fudge and cheesecake, what are we doing here? It is awesome. If you've never tried it, I'd actually pour the hot fudge on the cheesecake, and the richness of the fudge and the chocolate and the creaminess of the cheesecake and the chocolate chips and the cookie crumble all together, such a fantastic thing. So you can do all kinds of different toppings. What works for you? Raspberries, chocolate, strawberry, blueberries, pineapple even, whatever works for you. Different kinds of cheesecake. You can make caramel apple cheesecakes. You can make pumpkin cheesecakes, since fall is right here now as well. But we're doing a traditional cheesecake. So the next step you're going to see off of this is when it's coming out of the oven before it goes into the refrigerator, and we'll see you in a little while. All right, so our cheesecake baked. Now I'm in a high altitude here in Denver, so I actually didn't even go 45 minutes. Around 38, 39 minutes, the cheesecake looked correct. Everything was set. It had browned a little bit on the top. It was firm. This actually rose like a souffle, so it went above here, and I wasn't too worried about that because it wasn't spilling over. It was just very high. And then I turned the oven off when I thought it was done. Popped open the door slightly ajar and let it sit in the oven for another hour. And during that time, like a souffle, it would fall back down as well. So I've taken this out of the water bath. I've dried off my springform pan. and I'm gonna let it finish cooling to room temperature on this wire rack. And then I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator overnight for everything to set. And at that time, I will take it out, I will unmold it, and we'll be ready to cut into this and have cheesecake. So tomorrow, you will see me doing the final product off of this. New outfit, everything behind it because it's a new day. And that's our cheesecake for today. So I hope you've enjoyed so far, and we'll see the final product in the morning. Have a good one. All right, good morning everybody. It is the next day and our cheesecake has been in the refrigerator overnight, just chilling, getting really set and everything. So now we're going to unmold it and see how it turned out. This is always the little scary, exciting part, but the great part of chilling on this is it actually released right away from the pan. So here we have our beautiful cheesecake. Because it's crustless, you're actually going to leave it on this pan. You're not going to remove it to anything. So if you're actually taking it to a neighbor, make sure you get your bottom of your springform pan back off of that. So to cut this, we actually have hot water and a knife to cut through it, to try to cut through cleanly. Ooh, this is gonna be good. Nice and rich. Now, this can stay in your refrigerator for up to 3 days, or you can freeze it if you want for up to 3 months. So, whichever works for you. I was gonna use my pie knife, but I think my regular knife gets it out. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? All right, so we're gonna plate this. And as I said, my toppings, my blueberries, my strawberries were sitting overnight and they were chilling out as well. So I put them on the side of the plate with a little bit of whipped cream just for presentation purposes, but feel free to do however you want on your cheesecake. So again, testing everything, because actually this is not staying here in this house. I'm gonna have a couple of pieces here and the rest is gonna go to my trainer. My trainer's been wanting cheesecake, so we're gonna make sure he gets that. Oh my gosh. It is rich, it is creamy. You can just taste that little bit of hint of vanilla. You got the eggs in there, you got the cream cheese, the sour cream, just that little bite that gives to it as well. So with the fruit, add sugar and lemon, adds a little bit of extra to the sugar fruit as well. So bon appetit, folks. This was Meals with Michael. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.